I could tell the world just one thing, it would be that we're all okay.
Yeah, I was born at Clark Memorial, and I spent my whole life here. I was an only child. My dad was in World War II, and Mom was a stay-at-home mom. Back then, you could be a secretary, a nurse, or a teacher, and so I ended up being the least of all of them, you know. Then I met my husband a little later in my life, and we got married, and 4 years later we had my son, who's an only child. And then my husband died when our son was 10. And we came the day that Dr. Pebley and his wife started here. And Dr. Pebley's sermon that day centered around this little bear that had lost its shoulder strap. And Keith perked up all of a sudden, looked up at me, and says, "Mom, he's talking about corduroy." The people here just really cared for you. They Eva McGar, Lois, Sharon Shoei, all those older ladies would meet you in the narthex after church and just make you feel so at home. I've got on a couple committees like education and worship, but when I landed on World and Community, that was it. That was it. And I attribute that mostly to the people on that committee. There are people that are just very compassionate about doing what we do. And I had skills to do the Clover Child letters, so, right away I said, "Oh, I'll do the letters," which I kind of fumbled through as I went, and through the years, until now they just kind of let me run with it. But through the years, then I began to understand the whole scheme of those people and their plight. And some of them work the system, yes, but some of them don't. A lot of the girls that come in down at the center, they'll say they just got off from work. A lot of people don't make enough money to live on, to make the ends meet, even though they're out working hard. And that's with Clover Child, because I've gotten a good relationship with the people at the schools, and they tell me they try to send me people that actually are out there working, but they just need help. Okay, we closed 61 children. We had 85 on the list, and 10 of those children were homeless, well, according to school standards. They most of them were living in motels, and you're talking about a mother and several children in a room. I don't understand how they can survive like that. I mean, that has to be very difficult. And I know a lot of those moms are working 2 jobs, and trying to provide for their kids. Seems a hopeless situation. $4,030 something, I think. So now Burlington's been giving us a 10% discount, as did Value City when we shopped there. They don't charge sales tax because we're nonprofit. So we have, in the last few years, have been $75 a child, pretty much. But we make that determination that day, depending on how much we have in funding. But I'm so glad that we do this here. It gives them something. It doesn't give them a whole lot, but at least by those kids having new clothes to start school with, it doesn't put a stigma on them the first day of school that they're poor. It takes the contributions, it takes the dinners, it takes the Kroger cards, it takes all of us, and we all have parts. Like Wordy drives the van, and Julie sits there with me, and she's the liaison with the kids. She is so good with the kids. I'm not a big kid person, you know. I mean, I don't want kids to go hungry or not have clothes, but I'm not one of those that oohs and ahs over everybody's kid. I'm just not like that. But she is so good with those children, you know. And then we have ladies volunteer to sign those Bibles, which we've been doing for a few years now, you know. And then Julie gets somebody to donate those books. So then we have somebody back there volunteer to help the kids with the books and so on. And then everybody that volunteers to shop, we really need that big time. It's almost a year. September the 28th, last year was my last day of Humana Military. And so I have really enjoyed this year.
I bet.
I really have. It's been a good experience, and I've gotten to do a lot of things that I wanted to do. I'm ushering at Actors, which is fun, and I help with their 50th anniversary block party. People here had always talked about the center, and some of the older ones that talked about working at the center, and so I thought, you know, when I retire, I think I'd like to go down there and work too. So it was, I didn't do it right away when I first retired because I wanted some time for me. But I think it was in July I called down there and talked to Bonnie, which I had worked with last year when we did the Christmas baskets here. I really enjoy working with the people. And every time I go down there, I ask God to let those people see Him through me in that time that they're there, to give them some hope and some relief from their troubles that they're in, you know. And I guess in some ways I'm doing that. I had this one boy came through. Well, there were two boys together. They'd both been laid off. And it was their first time through. And this boy was very clean cut looking, had what appeared to be new clothes on. Tattoos so colorful all over. But at the very end, after helping him, as he's taking the food out, he looked at me and he says, "God bless you." And I'm just like, I did not expect that at all, you know. So I guess I'm getting a blessing from that as much as what I'm wanting to give those people. My philosophy is that if I'm going to do it, I want to put it all in and not spread myself too thin. If I tell you I'm going to do it, then I'm going to do it. When the Son of Man comes in His glory, and all the angels with Him, then He will sit on the throne of His glory. All the nations will be gathered before Him, and He will separate people one from another, as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And He will put the sheep at His right hand, and the goats at the left. Then the King will say to those at His right hand, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer Him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the King will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me."